So I chose to do my project over the mass shooting in Las Vegas. These incidences have always been intriguing to me, just wondering what the psychological background is of the shooter and what triggered them to do the things that they do. So I found this one interesting because there was really no mental health issues or motives that we can pinpoint. So the shooting in Las Vegas happened on the third day of the Route 91 Harvest Festival Country Music Festival on October the 1st of 2017. There were over 22,000 people in attendance at this venue. It was the first year that it had been at this venue. It's a 15-acre open-air venue. It's on the Strip of Las Vegas, and it's the actual fourth year for the festival, but like I said, the first one to be held at the village that's at the end of the Las Vegas Strip. So learning a little bit about our shooter here, his name was Stephen Paddock. He was a 64-year-old male. He was the youngest of two boys. His mother was 90 years old at the time of the shooting. He had been in contact with her, as well as his brother, 2 weeks prior to the incident to check in on his mom to see how she was doing. So nothing to note of this man. He's like everyone else. Stephen's older brother, Eric, told CNN that he was just a guy. There was absolutely no way I could conceive that my brother would shoot a bunch of people that he didn't know. Stephen Paddock was a retired postal employee. He had been an accountant. He was a real estate investor, and he was a big-time gambler. He was considered a high roller in Vegas, and thus he was given the VIP treatment, which included the use of a comped 1,700 square foot corner suite at the Mandalay Bay Resort, which is where the shooting took place. He was shooting from this suite at the Mandalay Bay. Stephen's favorite game was video poker. It was noted in many of the things that I had read about him that he could spend hours on end playing video poker and spend thousands upon thousands of dollars. He had no mental health issues that I could find. At one point, he had amassed a $2.1+ million fortune, being a gambler and an investor and an accountant. And he had no political or religious affiliation that would have prompted such a massacre. The firearms that he used in this massacre were all purchased legally. And the owner of Mesquite, Nevada, which is where Stephen Paddock lived, it's about an hour outside of Las Vegas, he said that Paddock never gave any indication or reason for him to believe that he was unstable or unfit at any time. So all the guns that he used, all the ammunition he used, were bought totally legal. On September 28th, 2017, Stephen Paddock checked into the Mandalay Bay suite. He was given this suite by the hotel management. It was a comp for the amount of money that he was going to spend due to his status as a high roller. He made several trips back to his home to Mesquite, which is about an hour away, between the dates of September 28th and October 1st. Each time he went home to Mesquite, Nevada, he would in turn bring suitcases back to Mandalay Bay. Since he was a high roller, since he was a VIP, he was able to accompany his bags up the service elevator with the bellhop. That way, he had his eyes on his baggage the whole time. On September 31st of 2017, Stephen is seen on surveillance playing his favorite game, video poker, well into the night. And the attack happened the next day on October the 1st. Jason Aldean was set to be the final performer of the 3-day Route 91 Harvest Music Festival. And at 10:05 p.m., something went terribly wrong as concert goers heard the first gunshots. Many of them trying to decipher whether that was gunshots or firecrackers or other noises of sort. Of course, nobody's mind instantly thinks they're in danger. Self-preservation is an interesting thing. So the suites at Mandalay Bay, he was given the 1,700 square foot suite by management due to his gambling and the amount of money they knew he would spend. The suites at Mandalay Bay have floor-to-ceiling windows, and the one comped for him was actually a corner suite directly overlooking the concert festival. Stephen also acquired the suite next to him under his ex-girlfriend's name. He had recently broke up with her prior to leaving Mesquite, Nevada. He gave her a lump sum of money and left. So he booked this hotel under her name. The two adjoining suites were both floor-to-ceiling windows and overlooked the 15-acre open-air venue where Jason Aldean was set to play that evening. In the end, 58 people were killed on October 1st, 2017 by Stephen Paddock. 2 more women had subsequently died between 2018 and 2019 from wounds sustained from his gunfire. And Stephen himself died that evening from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. So a total loss of life is 61 people. Over 850 individuals, and the numbers I found varied greatly between 5 and over 1,000. So 850 was a great median number in this 11-minute long massacre. Over 850 people were injured, and 61 people ultimately lost their lives. This diagram shows where Stephen's suite was. He had acquired, like I said, all the ammunition, all the gunfire. It was totally legal. He shot out the window of his suite and began firing down onto the concert goers below. Like I said prior, that they were trying to decipher whether it was gunshots or fireworks or part of the concert. Eventually everyone running for cover, ultimately understanding that it was gunfire. Stephen Paddock made a huge impact on this community. There were over 100 rounds a minute were fired, and when the police entered the room, there were over 20 guns found. 1,000 shell casings were found on the floor of his suite, as well as 5,000 unused rounds of ammo. He had come definitely prepared to take out mass number of people. The shooting on October 1st of 2017 impacted the community numerous ways. Vegas banning the sales of and purchases of bump stocks, which makes the rifle sound like an automatic weapon. Nevada gun laws tightened, including passing a red flag measure, which allows judges to have weapons removed from someone that they deem a threat. I think that's a fabulous law, should they have the appropriate resources to determine someone as a threat. And 3 years after the shooting, the victims are still out of work, facing extensive surgeries just to regain their normal. So the impact is still being felt by families today. The funeral director, I kind of feel like the coroner took the brunt of this. So I feel as though the impact on the funeral director isn't as great as it would be in other areas of mass shootings. I know that the funeral directors help with the overflow from the coroner's office. We would be dealing with the national and local news outlets, wanting to deal with the families, wanting to know how people are, wanting to know what the families are thinking and how they're grieving. We would be dealing with the security of the decedents and their families, trying to visit the funeral home, trying to make plans for their loved ones. And we would also be assisting, with local and national crime victims units. I'm sure helping any way they could. The external resources, I would imagine, I couldn't find anything just because this wasn't a 9/11. It was still a huge tragedy for our country, but not as extensive as 9/11. I would imagine the external resources needed would be National Guard troops deployed just to help families find their loved ones, to help people be reunited with families and people they were at the concert with. The federal and state police agencies would come in to help, as well as neighboring funeral directors, embalmers, removal services, airports, things of that nature would be helping to get the decedents home, to get their families to them, just to get people reconnected. It would take a village for sure. So the after effects of this shooting, I can imagine that the funeral directors will carry this case with them forever. I know, not even having graduated yet, I will carry some cases that I have done with me forever. And I can only imagine that this would be one of them for these directors that worked through this tragedy. The director may change the way they parent their own children, being afraid to let them go to any sort of open air venue. Anything like that would be challenging. And I do think that feeling scared in a public place would be terrifying. I hope that things like this don't happen again, but if they do, I know that they will be much more prepared than they were before. Thank you for listening.